Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing you a brand new review, and today I'm going to be reviewing Lilo and Stitch, the 2025 remake, which is now out in cinemas, and I'm going to be giving my thoughts on this, a film I didn't know I would be watching until literally a couple of days ago. A film that's not necessarily under the radar as such, but we've been on such a Mission Impossible hype with Andor as well and The Last of Us. Some of the other releases have sort of fallen through the vines, and this one is out now. It's going to be probably one of the biggest films of the year, and I'm going to give some thoughts on those. So please do comment your thoughts on Lilo and Stitch alongside your thoughts on, I guess we can say, the Disney Live Action remakes, where this holds up compared to some of the others, your thought on the original film. I'll go over my history with that very briefly as well. And if you like this video, please do hit the like button. There's a lot more film reviews coming as we enter blockbuster season. On top of that, we've got some really big videos coming up. So if you want to find us, find out what we're working on, get us on our social medias, linktree.com/cinemasavvy, puts you through to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky. But as I said, let's talk some Lilo and Stitch. And this is a really interesting one that I saw Lilo and Stitch, honestly, I'm not sure when. The original, I've got to obviously add to this. The new one I've seen today. I don't really have memories attached to this one. I remember images of Stitch. I feel like I'd seen it at my nan's as a kid. I spoke to my older sister about that earlier today. She had the exact same memory, but we don't remember watching the film. So I actually watched yesterday the animated one for what I would say the first time properly that I can remember. I can remember the story, and I've got to say I loved it. I was not sure what to expect. And it hit me pretty hard, to be fair. There's a lot going on with that, especially with it being a film about grief alongside this alien. So I really enjoyed that original. And because I don't have that history and experience with it, I get to go into this one fresh off the original story. But also, having seen this marketing campaign, we're seeing Stitch everywhere at the moment, merch deals, collabs. I went to the supermarket earlier and there was like an aisle of Stitch stuff at the moment. So it is one of Disney's big characters. And I could say it's inevitable that a Lilo and Stitch film would be made. I mean, with these live action remakes, unfortunately, the focus is quantity, not quality. And there's been some really great films of those I'll talk about later. So for this one, I was a bit mixed, but I did think Lilo and Stitch could be the one that really works. It lends itself to live action. It's far more interesting as a concept. It's not too much CGI. Yes, there's a CGI character and there's aliens, but it isn't something that's going to be completely CG or completely fantasy. It's set in the real world with very real things happening, and I think this is where some of these films work better, particularly the modern ones. And I've got to say, the live action remake was a very pleasant surprise. It was a very enjoyable film. I was at a packed screening at 6:40 p.m. on a Wednesday, by the way. It was almost full. And there were people of all ages there, people with kids, parents of kids, people like our age that obviously grew up with the original. So it was really interesting to sort of observe that and see the crowd come in. Obviously, I'm rewatching Mission Impossible on Saturday, which will be a very different crowd to Lilo and Stitch, but two juggernaut films releasing on the same day here in England. And I guess where I'm going to sort of talk about the story for this, which isn't, credit to a remake. This is obviously the original story. It's one of those remakes. They do somewhat extend it. This one's around about 1 hour 45. You get a lot more of the story between the CIA, between the social workers, and the sister relationship. So there's not necessarily differences there. I won't do spoilers as such, because I don't need to in a Lilo and Stitch review. But I am going to say that I was pleasantly surprised that they didn't add too many new things in, which has been an issue with some of the other live-action remakes. I mean, we know how bad Snow White was recently for so many different reasons. But I can sit there and say one of the reasons this film works, most importantly, because Stitch looks amazing in live action. They have perfected what needed to be done to put Stitch in live action. I don't know if that sounds hard to do. I'm not underestimating any CG. We have seen how certain studios will present things in live action. When you take an animated known item, put it into live action, and it looks disgusting. Take Minecraft, for example, recently with the weird face things. Yet with this, Stitch blends itself in well, and I think because you've got that shake-up of having, sets, live action actors, everything like that with the one CG creature, it makes it a little bit easier to do that. But when we get the space sequences at the start, it looks phenomenal as well, and its budget's 100 million, which isn't cheap by any means, but it's certainly, 2/3 less than what Snow White was. So it does show that you can make these films on lower yet still astronomical budgets. And the film worked for me for that. It's directed by Dean Fleischer Camp, who has obviously done many other films before. He's a very interesting director as well, taking on a concept such as this. And sorry you can hear the dog barking. It isn't Stitch as well. But going from animation into live action, not just this film but directed too, it does feel more natural. And I remember the director of Bumblebee felt the same way, or it felt like watching Bumblebee the same way, that there was a background in animation. Been given the opportunity to do live action. Look at Brad Bird going into a Mission Impossible film. You don't get many that make that jump, but some that can do it very well, very competently, and this was one of those. And the reason I think I was so invested in this as a story is because the performances were remarkable. I need to bring up the names on my screen because I don't want to pronounce them wrong. Maya Kiloha, I hope I pronounced that right, plays Lilo. She's incredible in this film. She's a child, as you expect for an actress to play Lilo. And I don't enjoy talking about child actors when I'm doing reviews. So many people go for kids. They call them this, that, the other, which is horrific because they're children. Not to blindly say I don't care for performances, but I'm very different on critiquing child actors' performances. But I thought she was amazing in this. She's got wonderful chemistry with the CG. She's got wonderful chemistry with the other actors on screen with her, and I felt like there was emotion in that performance. It was certainly one of the better child performances I've seen, and there's been a great many wonderful performances from child actors too. But I try not to get into that because I don't like where a lot of people go with those conversations and what they say about younger actors. Jake Lloyd's obviously one a lot of people will talk about and go to in that regard. But we've also got, I've got to pronounce this right as well, Sydney Elizabeth Agudong playing Nanny, which I believe may be her first film role. She's great in this too. She looks like Isabella Merced, who've been obviously covering The Last of Us, and I did double take the first time I saw it. Like, she hasn't done another live action role after Dora, has she? And I thought she's amazing in this too. And the pair of them carry the story with each other. Yes, Stitch is in here, but you go to the roots of that first film, the original, and it isn't about necessarily this creature coming to Earth. That's sure the subplot and something, but it's about two siblings recovering from the death of their parents in unexpected circumstances, putting their sister in a mother relationship. And it's very powerful when it does that, and that moves into the live action realm. I think that's why this functions much better as a film with the live action side of things. You bring in Stitch, as I said, who looks amazing, and you get to see him causing chaos. It's what you expect from him. We've obviously seen some really cool marketing techniques for this one, especially the Super Bowl had some cool stuff. So I've got to say, Disney have handled Stitch very well, the marketing side of things, the CG side, the performance. We've obviously got the original voice on it, who was the person that directed the first film and created Stitch as well, is always worth mentioning. So I love the fact it does still stick to its roots. There's obviously a couple of changes involved with Dr. Djukubert now being played by Zach Galifianakis, someone who obviously isn't a Russian, which you understand why political tensions, they don't want to go down that route. There's other things that carry over from the live action. We've got Hannah Waddingham in this as well, who was obviously isn't an animated one. So there are things that obviously change, and I don't have an opinion on them. I don't have the attachment to the source material that other people will do. But what I can say, my attachment to watching this as a film is that it flowed very well and it worked very well as a film. It's going to be so popular with younger people, and it may be one of the real big films for this blockbuster season. If people want to talk numbers, they'll see that family films are really what is printing money at the cinema these days. And I can see this being a humongous hit. It's the sort of film I think people of different ages could go and see, and maybe some would want to see it multiple times. It's going to be popular with younger people, adults as well. I'm not going to call it an event film as such, but it does feel like this is going to be a humongous hit. We're going to have the summer of Stitch, if you will. So I'm intrigued to see what follows on from this. The music I can't really fault either. The music is fine. The story is fine. It's a very enjoyable, watchable film. And it's kind of weird to do reviews such as this because I'm not being critical. And if I'm totally honest, I don't have a lot to criticise the film with. You know, maybe because I'm not the demographic for it originally, but I gelled with the story fine. It hit me in some emotional moments, especially with it being about family. So I maybe have a different approach to a film such as this as other people will based on personal circumstances. So yeah, it's a shorter review from me today, but it's a more positive one. I'm not just going to be talking about random things here and there. Oh, Elvis, though. Yes, the film does bring in Elvis stuff, and it brings it in very well, and I very much enjoyed the fact it did that. It's one of the things watching the animated one yesterday, I was like, wait, is that the real Elvis face in there? I don't know why, but I loved it, and it made it work, and it helps give this film an identity as well. So some really fun stuff in here. It's a film I think, I don't know if I'll go back to it, not at the cinema certainly, but it's a very enjoyable watch, and I think there'll be multiple generations of people that do this. I remember as a kid there was like an animated series as well after it came out. Like Lilo and Stitch was huge, It's kind of wild that it's took them 10 years to do this in live action. And we've seen reports recently that Disney are going to be, quote, doing less live action remakes, putting a break on them all. I know that there was a Rapunzel film that I think was being pulled and some other ones, and I agree with a lot of that. I think if there is a story, that there is a director who really wants to tell that story, and that the reason they want to make it is because they want to make that film, I'm okay with that. And I'm sure some will say, yeah, we wanted to do this, we wanted to do that. But Disney as a corporation have obviously been making these films on quantity. They have not cared for quality. You can look at the dreadful ones such as Pinocchio that were on Disney Plus that felt half finished. And that had some big names involved historically, which should have been a good film, which could have been a good film, but it wasn't. And it sort of epitomised Disney over these last few years that in the space of 2 months, we've had a terrible live-action remake followed by a great one. Maybe because Lilo and Stitch is a newer story, it makes it a little bit better to do. And my enjoyment with the live-action remakes, because I'm in a crowd that isn't totally opposed to it. I'm not I don't have the biggest background with Disney animation, so I'm very neutral on remaking them. Obviously, as I said, there's been some truly terrible ones. There's been some very good ones as well. I very much enjoyed the Kenneth Branagh directed Cinderella. The Jungle Book is my favourite of the whole of the live action remakes. I think it's the best film of them all too, with an incredible cast and technologies by Jon Favreau, who then uses that tech to go and make The Lion King, a very popular film, but a film that's also been obviously very criticised for the shot-for-shot remake, for lack of emotion, etc. I don't mind it as a technical marvel. And then you've got Beauty and the Beast, which felt like the sort of peak of these films of the audience turning up, everyone going to see what's next. And maybe because there were so many great ones early on in making these, that Disney just started flying ahead too much. I can't sit here and say, I want to see this made, I want to see that made. I really don't care nor have an opinion on a lot of them. And that's where I sit with it, which makes it easier for me to review a film such as Lilo and Stitch. A film which I think is fine. It's enjoyable. I had a good time. I'm going to recommend it. I'm going to round off this review with a recommendation of Lilo and Stitch. You don't need to see it at the cinema. If you want to wait till it's on Disney Plus or it's out on Blu-ray, you're more than entitled to. But I do think this is worth a watch, especially if you've got a family as well. If you've got a family, you're probably already going to the cinema to watch it. So that's going to be rounding out this review, a little bit shorter than some others. We've got a lot happening on the channel at the moment. We're going to be live on Saturday night with the Mission Impossible spoiler discussion. Cannot wait for that one. There's also a new Wes Anderson film out in cinemas this week. We've had so many Star Wars things happening with Andor. We've had a Rogue One special. We've got Last of Us every week. The finale's on Monday. A lot's happening on the channel, so do stick around. Thanks to everyone that supported us, that's been viewing us. New viewers, older viewers, we always appreciate it. So that's me rounding out. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.